Hello, and welcome back to the podcast. Before we dive into today's episode, I just wanted to let you know that I have created and released on YouTube a series of video called I'm Pregnant, Now What?, which is available for free on YouTube on my channel Cuppa with a Doula. And this series is aimed at mums, pregnant women, or mums-to-be who are wanting to learn how to navigate the system. So in this series, I am taking you through the different models of care that are available for you in Australia. I'm taking you through how to navigate the system in terms of what does consent mean, what really is involved in consenting to something, how to ask questions so that you are informed in your pregnancy. I'm also taking you through the different types of questions that you might want to ask your care provider at each stage of your pregnancy, the variation of normal that exists. Obviously, we're all different size, different shape, we're all different, and so are babies, and so much more. So if you're pregnant, if you're expecting, if you know someone who is expecting, please tell them about this series I have created. I am really on a journey to try and empower you and moms out there to just be in charge of their pregnancy and just take control and learn how to navigate the system. So please, I would love it if you could share it, spread the word out there. It's free, it's on YouTube. I'll put the link in the show notes of this episode. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode today. The only reason why this podcast exists is because of you guys listening. So thank you so much. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. In today's episode, I am chatting with the lovely Carla. This is episode 1 of 2 episodes where Carla takes us through her first pregnancy and birth. And in next week's episode, she will take us through her postpartum journey with her first son, as well as how her pregnancy is going and how she plans to birth her second baby. But in today's episode, we are focusing on Carla's first pregnancy and birthing journey. So Carla is an exercise physiologist, and as a very athletic woman, she takes us through what it was like to see her body change throughout her pregnancy, to adapt her movement and to remain mobile, because she knew that that would be really beneficial for her during her pregnancy, to reduce body aches during her labor, and also for her recovery during her postpartum. Carla had a really good idea of what she wanted her birth to look like. She was very informed. She did a lot of research, and she had formulated birth wishes with her midwife. But when it came to the actual birth, things didn't go as planned. And Carla takes us through what happened when her labor began quite slowly, as some labors begin for first-time moms. But things took a turn when Carla presented to hospital after realizing that her membranes had ruptured and there was potentially meconium in her waters. She then stayed in hospital to labor, and Carla takes us through what it was like for her to pretty much see her birth wishes go out the window. So in as much as she knew to stay flexible and accept birth as it comes, a lot of things didn't go according to what she wanted and to what she wished. And she describes how she was bullied during her labor by an obstetrician who very much wanted her to agree to an induction that Carla was very strongly refusing to have, and which had a very big consequence on the turn that her birth took. But I will leave Carla to take you through that. Thank you so much, Carla, for sharing your story, and I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. You are listening to Cuppa with a Doula. I'm your host, Alicia, exercise physiologist and doula, and every week I chat with a mom or mom-to-be about all things pregnancy, birth, and parenting. The stories you will hear in this podcast are real. and sometimes raw, but they are all told without any taboo. So grab yourself a cuppa, put your earphones in, relax, and enjoy this episode. Hi, Carla. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Most welcome, Alicia. Thanks so much for having me.
Not a problem. So, do you want to start by introducing yourself? So, telling the listeners your name, where you're living, and who is in your family.
Yep. So, my name is Carla Finch. I am living on the Gold Coast, right smack bang in the middle of it in Broadbeach. I have one son who is 2 years old. I have a husband. Almost husband. Sorry, I get married next week. So, basically husband. I have a small French bulldog, and I am currently creating my second human being. So we're about halfway along there. So not sure whether it's girl or boy, so who knows what it will be.
Oh, amazing. Are you wanting to find out?
No, not at all.
Amazing. Right.
Surprise. The element of surprise.
Did you find out with your son?
We did, yeah. With Tio, it was like a very big deal for my partner to find out. I think it was that, really wanting a boy kind of thing. And now that we've got our beautiful boy, I sort of said, well, you've been blessed, and whatever else we get is another blessing, but,
yep.
He's a bit more open to letting this one ride out. So, yes.
Interesting. So you haven't changed your mind at any point or had any temptation moments yet?
No, not at all.
Amazing.
Honestly. Yeah, it's been a really different sort of feeling, I think, with this pregnancy. I'm just happy to let whatever happen and just let it do its thing.
Yeah, amazing. Wow. So I guess let's start right back and let me ask you a question that I ask all my guests. Did you always want to be a mum?
No. Almost not even really at all. I think, like any woman, I guess you kind of think at some point, it would be nice, to have a family and like have a kid and things like that. But I've definitely never looked at a child and been like, oh my God, like my uterus is glowing, or, I know what you mean. I've never had that. I've never been maternal. I've never had that. Never even kind of wanted in a million years to like change my life and become a mum. It's never been on my list. But I think we actually were supposed to go on like a 2-month trip to South America, and that's something that's been on my bucket list, like become a little bit more fluent in Spanish and like do some hiking and some just immersive living in South America. And unfortunately or fortunately, COVID hit, and then we fell pregnant with Tio.
Wow.
I think that was kind of the blessing.
Yeah. That is.
You didn't get to go on your trip, but
that's right. That is thanks for your honesty, because I feel like it's not easy to say, well, I wasn't really maternal and I didn't really want to be a mum, but I mean, obviously something changed at some point. Was Tio's pregnancy planned?
No.
That's probably what changed.
Not in terms of, I think like I definitely know and have always known when I'm ovulating. So I knew that I would fall pregnant had we have had sex between, X and Y. And I think I just left that one open to the world. I was like, well, I'm not going to say no to my partner on this day because he doesn't know my ovulation schedule. And I was like, well, if it's meant to happen, it will happen, and whatever else. And there you go. It happened, whatever, first go, first try. And I was like, well, then that's what I'm meant to do in my life, I guess.
Oh, that's beautiful. Had you spoken with your, I guess we can call him your husband, really. Had you spoken about kids? Was it something he wanted at some point?
Yeah, he definitely wanted children at some point. I think he's a little bit younger than I am, so for him it was always a bit more of a lengthier period of time, and he's a bit more of like the numbers crunching, kind of financially focused, passionate man.
I see.
So for him it's one of those, how many zeros do you have before you have a child?
Okay.
I think was one of his real big questions. And so I thought there will never be a perfect time. And I think we were just really we really were blessed in that moment that it's kind of when that happened for us, because the conversation of, hey, I'm pregnant was actually not a hard one to have. Like it seemed like, because of the way the world was at that moment and because of whatever was happening, it was sort of like, oh my God, what an absolute blessing. And he was really excited for that. Actually was teary. He was very excited. And so I think that's the difference of, planning for something and then actually finding out something's happening for you rather than going, no, I don't want it right now. But when it's happening, you're like, oh, This is just beautiful.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think sometimes, the whole planning stage, you just think about it too much, and then you just start going, oh, but what if, but what about this? And then you go maybe back and forth, and maybe that's what some people need. Maybe they need to think about it for longer, or whatever the circumstances are. But I think sometimes if you've got obviously the right environment, you're in a relationship where you can see yourself having children with the person and so on, then it's like, and if it's going to happen at some point, why not now? I mean, it's open to possibilities at this point. And as you said, if it was meant to happen, well, it happened. There you go.
That's it.
Oh, wow. Did you fall pregnant at the start of COVID, at the very start of it?
No, it was probably, I guess not almost midway through, but middle of the range. It was sort of after all of actually, no, that's a lie. It was probably more towards the start, because it was just when everything started shutting down and all the international borders shut. And then we were in lockdown in our house when I was pregnant. So no, it was during. Oh. Yeah, it would have been during the thick of it.
Wow.
I was just trying to think then. I was like, oh, what was that? Yeah, because I remember doing workouts upstairs, and we were FaceTiming our friends, and then obviously I was getting more of a belly as we were doing these workouts, and I'm just thinking about that. I'm like, oh yeah, that was when I was pregnant, when I was locked upstairs.
That's right. That's amazing. So how much did you know about pregnancy, about models of care, about what to do when you're pregnant? How much did you know?
Nothing really. I think the only thing, I have a few friends who have had babies and things like that, definitely hadn't delved into that world too much in terms of talking to them or super interested about it or anything. Love my girlfriends, but wasn't really in that world yet.
No.
But I do recall always knowing that, well, it's probably more just me as a human, regardless of any situation in my life, I always like to look towards a more natural or alternative approach before I would ever look at mainstream healthcare systems.
Yeah.
So I think it was sort of I would always do that anyway, and then in pregnancy it would be the same.
Yeah, that makes sense. So how did you research therefore your options of care? So knowing that you wanted probably something a little less medicalised and potentially no interventions, how did you go about finding your place of birth, I guess, and your model of care?
So I actually asked around a few women that I knew who had birthed in the last 12 months around our area.
Yeah.
So one of my sister-in-law's friends had a baby 3 months earlier than I'd fallen pregnant, and I sort of messaged her and said, hey, where did you go? How was your experience? Blah, 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 that sort of thing. And I did that for a few people. And I found out about the midwifery group practice program that we have at the Gold Coast Uni Hospital.
Good.
Which is a birth centre model of care.
Yeah.
Which is at Gold Coast, it's a birth centre within the hospital.
That's right.
So some birth centre models are separate or semi-separated, where they're their own building, and then they can just be transferred to the hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was probably something that I was like, oh, this is a more women-centered, continuity of care model that I'm after, with the ease of modern medicine, if so necessarily required.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Did you get into the MGP? Because I'm guessing it's like most MGPs, it's sometimes difficult, or some people miss out because of, I don't know, circumstances.
So no, I was accepted to the MGP. Oh, okay. I think I found out quite early on that I was pregnant, as in basically 4 weeks to the day I knew I was pregnant. So knowing quite early means that you've got a lot of time up your sleeve to organise your models of care. So that definitely was a bonus. And at the time, the MGP here, you were allowed to self-refer. So all I had to do was call up patient liaison or email patient liaison and say, hey, I'm interested in MGP. And then they allocate you a spot, basically. And then when you hit 20 weeks or 18 to 20 weeks, they do a booking appointment, and then they can decide basically whether or not you would be classed as low, medium or high risk, dependent upon that, booking, as well as your scans and things like that early on in the piece, and obviously past experiences in pregnancy and things like that. And then they can really allocate your primary midwife based off of that, or your team's care model. Yeah. Yeah, and I think also quite often the MGP wants to capture first-time mums.
Exactly, yeah.
So again, that was in my favor. You know, this was my first birth, my first pregnancy. Yeah, and so it was, you know, I'm a healthy, young-ish woman. It depends what you call young, I don't know. I feel young, but, you know.
Age is a number. I mean, except for the hospital, but otherwise it is a number, really.
No, exactly. But, yeah, like, you know, healthy, young, whatever. So I was easily accepted into that model of care.
Oh, amazing. Oh, see, that is amazing. And that's right. MGPs, they try and really get first-time moms, if they have a low-risk pregnancy in, just because, well, you know, it makes sense to really guide first-time moms, allow them to have the continuity of care and have that continuing into the postpartum period as well. And it's got so many benefits to be in the MGP for the woman and for the baby. I could talk about those for the next 2 hours, but we're not going to. So yeah, amazing. So what we haven't mentioned now is that you're an exercise physiologist. So now my next question is, how did you feel and how did you, I'm guessing, stay active and manage your body, you know, changing with the pregnancy?
I've always been very athletic in my life. I've done Ironmans, I've done bodybuilding, I've done, you know, I've done a lot of sprinting, I've played football, I've done a lot of different sports. I love it. Love to move. That's amazing. You know, and that's one of the reasons I became an exercise physiologist, because I think if I can get someone moving 1% better, or for 1 day longer or 1 year longer, or, you know, then I'm going to make a really fantastic impact on their life. And so that's probably why I ended up being an EP. And so basically, like, obviously everyone has a very different experience with their pregnancies. I was so very blessed. Like, I was quite fit at the time that I fell pregnant with Tio. I had like a very low body fat percentage. I had like great like muscle mass to start out pregnancy. Like, you know, I was happy as Larry. So for me, I didn't get sick once. I never felt nauseous. I didn't feel any changes or shifting in my body's capacity or movement patterns until really late in the game. Like really 32 to 34 weeks is where I'm talking. I noticed I was pregnant. Like, I really didn't notice much change. So for me, it was life as usual, not really changing a lot. I did reduce my intensity and increase my rest periods, like my rest duration, and did reduce like my rep ranges or, you know, reduce the weight load and things like that. But it was mostly off of heart rate and actually just how I felt. So, you know, I just used the good old RPE scale. And after each set, I'd go, oh, that was about an 8 out of 10, probably pushing a bit hard here, Carla. Like, take a breather, not running a marathon tomorrow. But yeah, like I really didn't change a lot. And then as the pregnancy progressed, I just started doing, you know, more body weight style movements and things like that, focused a little bit more on making sure that I had good pelvic floor activation while I was doing weights and things like that, and really being aware of my core engagement and things like that while I was moving weights. And then I pretty much just stopped doing like my heavy weights and did, you know, like 5 kilos or less dumbbells and all just yoga and body weight movements from about 36 weeks onwards.
Nice.
And lots of swimming. Because it was summer. I was summer pregnant, so
makes sense.
I did lots of swimming.
Prior to pregnancy, were you aware of, you know, pelvic floor and well, obviously core, but I'm guessing like more the pelvic floor in terms of, you know, both the activation but also the relaxation, you know, that needs to happen, especially when, you know, during birth and during the pushing phase. Were you aware of that before your pregnancy?
I would say probably not so much the relaxation aspect. Definitely, I have a girlfriend who is a female physio, and so I had followed her and like, you know, had conversations with her before I had been pregnant. So like just out of interest and things like that from a women's health perspective. And so I knew a little bit about pelvic floor and obviously, you know, strengthening it and things like that. But yeah, definitely didn't think a lot about the relaxation aspect of it, probably until I started doing a lot more research and things like that when I was pregnant.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so how did you feel when, you know, you saw your body changing? Because you went from, as you said, a very low body fat percentage to obviously, you know, growing your belly, growing a bump. Did it matter to you, I guess?
Do you know, I think initially, like it did matter to me, and probably because I could see my body changing a lot more than anyone else could. And I think that's, that's most people. It's like, oh, your skin looks beautiful. Are you kidding me? I have like one pimple. Come on, man. It's awful. Look at it. Like we always point out our flaws, or like, whatever's really big in our own brains or minds or whatever you want to say. But as the pregnancy progressed and as I could feel like I was growing a human, oh my God, I'm basically God, like far out. It's incredible. Like, oh my God, you can feel this human kicking. Like you are its life. You are literally creating life. And I literally forgo whatever. I was like, whatever will be. Like, I'm going to keep moving and stuff. I'm healthy. I'm not, I'm going to keep active and things like that. But if my body stretches, if I get stretch marks, if I, if this happens, if that happens, if my butt drops, okay, well, so be it. I'll jump back in the gym later on in life and make sure that that's, a priority. But for now, I am God. So, and I really loved that. And I was like, oh, I can feel everything. And I'm like, oh, it was beautiful. Yeah, pregnancy's beautiful.
That's amazing. And see, I mean, yes, like you said, sometimes it's hard for us to accept that our body is changing. And sometimes it's quick. You go from not really showing to you wake up the next day and you're like, where has that come from? I mean, you're pregnant, but you're like, I didn't expect to wake up looking pregnant right now. Sure. And so sometimes that can be hard, even though that it's happening, and most people end up showing at some stage in their pregnancy. I mean, some people don't show until later, and that's, they don't like that. Some people show early and they don't like that. So I mean, it's difficult, but it's, as you said, in the end, pregnancy is only 9 months, and then you've got the rest of your life to get back into exercise, get back into strengthening, into toning the body, into whatever it is that the goal is or the goals are. Yes, stretch marks happen. Some women get a very big bump and they get no stretch marks. Some women have a smaller bump, they get stretch marks. There's just no rules there. It's not fair at all. But anyway.
And I think that's, that's a part of it. Like it doesn't matter sometimes what you do. You could eat the healthiest, move the most, have this, have that, whatever, and you still end up getting water retention, and you still end up with stretch marks, and your boobs still drop, and these things still happen. Or, it could be the other way. You really didn't do a lot in pregnancy, and you ended up looking not pregnant the day after you had the kid. Like, that's wonderful for you. Like, we're all so different. Yeah. But there's always, like you say, there's always time in the rest of our life to focus and prioritize on, if that's a change you want to make for yourself, then okay, then focus on that.
Yeah, that's right. So you mentioned before that you did a lot of research. Did you do research in terms of the type of birth you wanted, the I guess the evidence behind things like, inductions and CTG monitoring, and maybe also what you wanted in the postpartum period?
Yeah, a lot, actually. I did a lot of research. I'm a research nerd. I feel like it comes with EP territory.
Yeah,
does it not? I don't know. It's just a part of us, isn't it? I don't know.
It's ingrained for 4 years, yes.
Seriously. Or longer life, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why we are who we are. But yeah, I really got into it. I delved into it. This is my life. This is my body. This is what's happening. Okay, let's dig deep. So yeah, I mean, we did a hypnobirthing course, which obviously shows you different aspects of things as well.
Yeah.
I listened to a range of different podcasts.
Yeah.
I read a few different books. Mm-hmm. So like Ina May.
Yeah.
I read a lot of research from a number of different places, but probably Sarah Wickham.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Does some really beautiful, don't know if that's the right word for research, but I think research is beautiful, so we'll say beautiful. Some really great research on pregnancy, birth, postpartum stuff. Mm-hmm. So that world. Also evidence-based birth, the website, that was another place that I found some information. And then just discussions, the same sort of thing. Like, I think before there was all this connection in terms of, social media and accessibility to so many different information sources, all we had was our words and someone else's experiences to learn from. And so that's something I always hold really close to my heart as well. So, I asked my mum, about her births.
Good.
And what she experienced. I asked my partner's mum. I asked all my girlfriends, like, more in depth. Like, I want to hear. Like, if you're happy to share, obviously, but like, I want to hear about it. I went to like some birth circles. So like, there's a home birth Gold Coast meetup.
Yeah.
So you can go and attend that and, have a chat to women and listen to their birth stories and, ask questions and things like that. Also with the midwifery group practice, they have a meet and greet. So like, the whole team that you're in with the midwifery care. So usually and it depends, like each team's model is slightly different depending on your allocation, but like, there might be 6 midwives in that team, and so you'll come together. I think it was twice during my pregnancy, and so like you'll sit down in a group, or one of ours was online because it was COVID, and you can kind of sit with all the other women that are in a similar gestation as you, with the midwives of the team that you're in, and then you can sort of ask about different questions, model of care, interventions, postpartum, whatever you sort of feel like chatting about. So same sort of thing. I think all of that, just you feel a certain way when you hear something and you go, oh, that's not for me. Or you go, oh yeah, I can really get amongst that. Or like, no, that is me. That's a hands down, hand on my heart, I'm not going against that. That's me.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of what happened. I just heard things and I listened to things, I read things, and I was like, that's me, that's what I want. That's definitely not what I want. And that sort of formulated the path, I guess, to where I went. That's
right. And as you said, before any of this, podcasts, social media, blogs and stuff, you could only rely on your circle of family, friends, aunties, whoever was around you who may or may not have had a birth experience. Sometimes you heard the worst of the worst. Sometimes you heard some, I guess, mainstream stories, or sometimes it was great, or for some people, they don't want to hear the worst. Because, sometimes it's really just not where you want to be. Some people want to hear it all, like probably you. Yeah, and see, nowadays, there's a lot more info. There's a lot more ability to connect with, other women that are a similar gestation to you, or that are living around your area, so that you basically end up building a relationship, and then you have mum friends when you have your babies, basically, and that's great too.
100%. I think the other, like what you sort of just touched on there about having some mum friends at the end of it, even, there was 4 women who had kids. We were all within, I guess, 6 weeks of each other in terms of when we birthed. And so like, even we just had a Facebook group, as well as obviously some catch-ups and things. And I found that really, really helpful because, you're up at 2 a.m. in the morning and you kind of just write each other a message, or, maybe there's a question that and instead of Dr. Googling or whatever, aimlessly scrolling or doing whatever we do, sometimes it was really helpful because you knew that there was these 3 other women that they're going to get that eventually, whether it's now or in an hour or tomorrow, and they're going to write back, or it would either be have a laugh about it, or it was oh, me too, I'm having a hard time, or hey, maybe you should reach out to this support line, or or hey, try this, or it was like, girl, I feel you, I'm here, I'm listening, And I think that was super helpful, and I would definitely say to everyone, even if it is only a text message or a group message or something with like 2 or 3 other people that are birthing around the same time as you never know what you're going to feel on any given day when you've had a baby. So it's really nice to have that little group of support.
Being able to relate and have people that understand what you're going through right now is everything in the postpartum period. Whether, as you said, you guys were within 6 weeks, but even if, it's within 3 or 4 months, at least that person's probably gone through what you're going through, because usually, we're not the only ones living that. I mean, sometimes we think we are. We're like, oh, I'm the only one that's ever had a baby not sleep through the night at all. But usually we're not. Usually that's a reality for other moms, and it's good to just be able to go, oh, okay, someone understands me, and then also get some tips, some tricks, some referrals, some, this is my doctor, this is my physio, this is where I go, and so on, just to get help, because sometimes you've got no idea what to do, or you need pointers to get you to where you need to be.
That's it. And I think like sleep deprivation is real sometimes. So, sometimes you have no idea what you're thinking or not thinking, or where you want to go anyway. So if someone goes, oh my God, me too, I saw pelvic floor physio and it helps so much, you'd be like, oh my God, that's a great idea. I would never have thought of that in this half slumped sleep state.
Exactly. So, well, take us through the days leading up to your birth. When did you birth and how did it unfold for you?
So my mum and dad came up and they were staying close by, but not with us. So Tio was 11 days over when my water broke. So in the days leading up to due date, really, I guess it was probably like, like everyone else, you're kind of anticipating it. Will it happen? Will it not?
Yeah.
In my head, I'd thought 7 days-ish later. So I'd really sort of put it out of my head anyway for a period of time. And I just did everything as normal, really. I was really enjoying my life in terms of going for really long, slow beach walks, going for swims all day, reading some books, having some bubble baths. Like I was just living my high life. I was like, this is the best. Don't come any day soon, love, because I'm enjoying these days. And we had a beautiful summer, so it was actually glorious. And because my parents were staying probably about like a 5K walk from here. So I'd walk in and see them in the morning or the afternoon or for dinner or something like that. And so the day before my water broke, actually the morning of, I was walking in to see them. So I walked my 5Ks, doing my thing. It was actually quite a hot day. And I was like, I'm feeling actually a bit tired today. Just feeling a bit, make sure I drink some water. Like I might actually get a lift home. I'm not feeling like I can walk all the way back home today. So went home, kind of cruised around in the afternoon, and I had some induction acupuncture.
Okay.
Maybe the day before or 2 days before this.
Was it your first time doing that?
No, I think I'd done 2. Okay. So I think I'd done one just after the due date, like 2 or 3 days after. And then once I'd hit 7 days post, I'd had another go round session of it. So I think I would have been like 8 days past probably. So it was 1 or 2 days before my water broke. And then we had dinner and my partner made a joke. Call me, because he was dropping my parents home after dinner. Call me if something happens. I said, okay.
Sure.
Good one, babe.
Will do.
Yeah, that's it. Okay, no worries. So he walks out the door and my water breaks. And it was but a trickle. Like it wasn't a lot. And I was like, oh yeah, to me I knew it was something happening, but I was like, I don't know if I should tell him because my partner's a very stressy kind of human and in the most beautiful way, just excited and things like that. And I was like, oh, maybe I should just not tell him. And I was like, no, Carla, you live with truth and honesty. So better tell him. So I was like, hey, you told me to call you. I'm calling you. Guess what? And he goes, no way, you're kidding me. And I was like, see, maybe you should have made a joke last week.
That would have helped.
Yeah, would it? I don't know. Maybe that was the whole thing, right? And then, I was like, oh, hey, just to let you know, I've had a little bit of fluid leak. He goes, are you sure you didn't just piss yourself? I was like, babe, no.
Thanks.
I was like, that's it. I was like, give me some, he's like, I don't know, you're getting pretty heavy. I was like, babe. And then I basically said to him, he said, what colour's the fluid?
Good.
And I said, it's like a slight yellowy tinge. And then he kind of just went heart sank. Oh my God, okay, we'll get off the phone and call the midwife. We'll call the hospital or do something now. And I was like, babe, I'm going to bed. I'm going to bed. I took my temperature. I'll wake up every 4 hours and take my temperature. I'll monitor myself. I'm feeling fine. I'll call them in the morning or, if something changes. And he's like, absolutely not. So, comes home, calls the midwife.
Oh, right.
I know, wasn't it good? Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, the midwife my primary midwife was not on.
Oh.
And my secondary midwife was not on.
Oh, what are the
chances?
They both
were, what do I know? The universe has a really interesting way of doing things. Yeah, but that's okay. I think, like everything, it's always for a reason.
Yeah.
So we're on the phone to this midwife who have never spoken to, never met.
Yeah.
Which is not the plan. And she said, hey, look, if there's any colour in the discharge at all, apart from being completely clear fluid, you should go up the hospital just to be safe.
Okay.
And so for me, I said, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And my partner goes, we have to. She said, just to be safe, babe. She said there's a risk. I was like, I'd switched off after she said hospital, love. I just, no. And I said to him, babe, if we go right now, we are not coming home until this baby's born.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be there for, I don't know how long, but it's going to be a while because nothing's really even happening yet. And he was like, can we not just go and just get hooked up on that little, the CTG, he didn't call it a CTG at the time, but get hooked up on the little thing and they can just monitor to make sure the baby's okay. And I said, okay, sure. Because, so at this point for me, I was like, I've already lost him.
Yeah.
I can't progress safely, wholly, quietly, relaxed, knowing that he's over here really stressing himself out.
That's right.
My support person's basically not supportive at all at this moment in time. And I can't tell him to leave because that's just not where I was at that moment.
That's right.
I'm just like, it's not who I was at that time.
That's right.
And so we went up to the hospital. We went into the MAC ward because you can't go into the birth centre unless your midwife's there, and the midwife wasn't there.
Okay.
So we had to go into the MAC ward, which is the general population maternity care.
General population. I love the way you put it.
Sorry.
I understand what you mean. The people that are not in the birth centre, basically. Yeah,
sorry.
No.
I didn't make that sound right. But the maternity care unit at the hospital. And so we went in there and had a really less than impressive midwife on in the MAC ward, who was quite frankly very rude. And I told her to step off, which was nice for me. I said, I'm not doing anything until the midwife who's going to take me to the birth centre. I'm not birthing in your wards. You don't have to look after me and I don't have to be here. I'm waiting for my midwife. I'm going to just be here on the bed if you need me, basically. And they said, okay, well, we're just going to put this CTG monitor on. And I was like, okay, that's fine. That's what we came here for in terms of my partner's needs, wants and beliefs.
Good.
So, sweet, happy to sit here with the monitor thing on. And then they said all the kinds of things of, we need to do it. And I can't actually even remember it, but basically a swab to see if it's meconium in your water or if your water has actually broken. I said, well, I already know that it's broken. I already know that there's a yellow tinge. I already know that it's not meconium liqueur, it's not thick, stained. My child is not at any issue at this moment in time. So that's okay. I declined that completely. And then I said to my partner, hey, I'm pretty keen to go home. We've had the monitor on, I think, for maybe half an hour. Yep. Everything's fine. You can see contractions are happening on the screen as well as, heart rate, baby moving, doing all the things. It's all good. And he was like, we can't just leave. I was like, okay, well, that's pretty much my only option. All right. Cool. So I put my clary sage on. I put, I got my little blackout eye mask. I plugged myself in and had all my meditation tracks on, and I was like, all right, well, this is the only way around it then, I guess. So I was like, all right, we'll just see where this world takes us. And then the midwife turned up. I actually have no idea how long, but I feel like it was hours. Aww. She was like, I'll be there in 20, but I have no idea how long I was sitting on the bed thing for. Aww. So then she finally got there, and then we got transferred into the birth centre unit, the private room. And I had very much wanted to use water immersion. Yeah. And the first thing she said was absolutely not. You can't use any water immersion because your water has broken and ruptured membranes basically are a no-go. And I was like, well, that's pretty unfair. I feel like a complete no when you really don't know anything else except I've got a healthy baby on a screen here that you're seeing. Yeah. If something changes, okay, sure, intervene. But for now, I don't understand why I can't. Yeah. But she was pretty adamant that wasn't happening. Okay. And then there was the conversation of obviously, increased risk of infection when your waters have been broken for, 12 hours, 16 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours. All of these things. And it goes up with the duration of time that your waters have been broken for. And so they're asking, do you want antibiotics? No, I definitely don't want that. I think at this point I'd only, my waters broke maybe 8 hours ago. I'm like, this is early, what time? I was contracting, so I was definitely in labour. I think at this stage it was still infrequent. I mean, there was a pattern, but it was infrequent, and it was, very easy to move around and do everything and everything like that. Once we moved into the room, I just did put some fairy lights on, put some music on. Yeah, turn your music on. Yeah. sat on the ball, did some, deep breathing and things, did some nipple stimulation because I was like, baby, you got to start moving because these guys are really going to like start grinding my gears in a minute. So I was like really trying to talk to baby and like, hey, I'm not like trying to speed you up. You come in your own time, but like, hey, do us a favor, start moving or like start pushing some hard contractions. I'm ready. And then, like in my head, I'm like, I'm a fit girl. I don't need help contracting. Like my uterus is a happy, healthy uterus. It'll do its thing. But in the medical world, a baby needs to come out now, especially if there's a risk of meconium because, meconium aspiration is a real thing. And it is. It is a real thing. And it does cause a lot of issues for babies. But I think the difference is how thick that meconium is and the fact that I even said to the obstetrician, you don't know, this baby's 11 days over its due date. Like it's reached a good gestation here. It's got a healthy bowel. It's moving its bowels. How long do you know it hasn't been sitting in its poo for a week?
That's right.
Like you don't know that. You can't tell me that. So why do I need to, be induced? Why do we need to progress this labour? You're telling me there's a risk of my child having meconium aspiration. Don't you think putting it through a harder and faster marathon is going to make that risk worse?
Yeah, that's right. Had you had the induction conversation with the hospital? Had they tried to, get things moving because he was 11 days overdue at that point?
Yeah, we had that conversation, but not with the hospital because everything's done through your midwife, through your primary midwife. So all of the induction chats were through them.
Yeah.
And like I had made it pretty well aware. And even when this midwife that we called up on the phone, I said, hey, the biggest thing for me is Syntocin. I just don't want it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy for you to, if I wasn't in labour, I'm happy for you to try and start it with, like breaking my waters or like, putting your jelly on or doing something like that. But I do not want Syntocin.
Yeah.
That's what I really don't want. And I made that very clear with her. And then sort of she was like, okay, well, I know that that's not what you want. So this obstetrician's just going to keep coming in and really annoying you basically unless we start to move things along. And I was like, okay, so give me any other option under the sun except for that. And she was like, okay, well, we can like, further rupture your membranes. And I was like, rightio, do that and then tell them to leave me alone for 6 hours. I was like, if that's going to buy me time, do that and leave me alone.
That's called bargaining. That is bargaining with the medical system. That is 100%. All it is. Was this midwife supportive of your birthing preferences?
Look, I am going to say completely, absolutely not.
Okay.
I just think... I don't know whether she was in a bad mood, whether it was just a bad day. She didn't want to be on call and she had to pick up someone else's person. She'd never met me, wasn't interested. But I said, hey, look, like I totally understand, but this is one thing that I'm really, this is one big thing for me. And I'm like, I get that old love out there. I said, bring her in, I'll chat to her. Like, you don't even have to chat to her, whatever. But I was like, if you can just stand there and be like, this is what she's telling you. She's declined it. Then that would be enough for me. That is your support. You don't even have to be on my team. You just have to say, she's declined it, and that's all.
Yeah.
Move on, please. See you in 6 hours when you do the rounds again. But it was basically exactly what you say. It was bargaining. I was like, okay, how can I buy myself some more time? Because they are just not leaving me alone. And, you got to think of the physiological aspect of labour. Like, where's my oxytocin currently? Probably like taking a real back seat because every time someone walks in that door, every time someone flicks the lights on to have a conversation with me, every time someone tries to hijack my body and my birth, I'm like, well, this is really like it's really putting a dampener on my situation. So I'm like, okay, how can I bargain my way out of this so I can get some me time for the next 3 to 6 hours? Because then I can get a bit of progression, get some progression here. So then, definitely said, okay, yep, sweet, do the rupture of membranes, do your thing. And then, God, I wish I hadn't have done that because that was the most uncomfortable thing in my entire life. I don't know how women do that, like as a, way to start their labor, because then I just felt like I was wetting myself constantly with every contraction. Like it was like, and like uncomfortably so, like it's everywhere. And like I'm a very not wearing a bra, not wearing knickers kind of gal. And so I'm like, there was literally fluid going everywhere. So it was like contract fluid on the floor, fluid on legs. I was like, oh, this is just like icky. I was like, that's not nice for my life, but okay. All the while I've got the CTG thing on, right?
Oh, have you still?
Yeah. So it was like the CTG stays on. And then I was like, at one point I was like, I wonder if I can disconnect this while she's out of the room. No, I couldn't, because then it goes off really loudly and beeps, and then she comes back in and puts it on. I was like, dang it.
Oh, that's
so
a
that
shame.
failed. I know, wasn't it? I was like, I reckon I could work my way around this. I couldn't. And then pretty much between all of the noises and all of the things, I was like, this is just uncomfortable. But I was still adamant. I was like, all right, I'm going to keep working at this. This is going to be fine. And then I reckon I bought myself like another 3 hours. And then she comes back in and goes, okay, well, the obstetrician wants to come in and have a chat to you. And I was like, oh, good. Can't wait. This is lovely.
Can you just go to bed now?
Let's have this combo. Yeah, straight up. Can I just leave now? I'm going to discharge and go home. See you guys. Yeah, and so the obstetrician comes in and same conversation. Hey, the more time that we take, this, that. And I was like, okay, same conversation. I see you. I see where you're at.
Well, they've just got to tick a box. They've just got to say, I've had the conversation, she declined, or, whatever. Yeah, that's it.
That's right. But I'm like, how many times do you have to decline before, like, isn't no? Like, this is my question. Have I not said no? Why are you here? If something changed, come and intervene.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed. I haven't requested
That's
anything.
a very good point. At what point is no? Has your no got an expiry date? Which the expiry date is 3 hours later, apparently. So apparently within 3 hours, your no is potentially a yes now. That's what it sounds like, really.
Well, look, I mean, really, to me, it's bullying, basically. Yep. Like, the more I ask you, the more likely you are to say yes. Like, come on.
And we know
the
that
risks are getting worse. It's getting harder.
And we know that at this point, you're vulnerable because you want your baby out. That they want your baby out, but you want Theo out. But you've got your principles, you've got your beliefs, and the obstetrician obviously doesn't sound like he cares about that. He just wants your baby out right this second, regardless of the fact that you're a first-time mum, you've never been through labour, and it's totally normal for labour to not happen in the first 30 minutes of your waters breaking, really. And it's normal. I think a healthy, average length of labour is about 12 hours. I'm pretty sure at this point you haven't even been in labour for 12 hours, yet you're pressured, and the more pressure they put on you, the more likely you are to give up and say yes to anything they want, really.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I don't know, it's kind of sad, but definitely that there's no progression when you're in that situation anyway. Like, how can you expect your body to do the job it needs to do when this keeps happening? Like, how? It's impossible almost.
That's right.
So I was like, well, this is just an impossible decision because I basically have to agree to what they want so that they'll leave me alone. And if I don't agree, this is just going to continue longer and longer and longer and longer until they get what they want.
So what did
I was
they
like,
want?
I'm just not far enough. They just wanted to hook me up to Syntocin, basically, hurry it up and birth this baby. This kid needs to be out within 24 hours of your water breaking. Okay, well.
But it hadn't been 24 hours yet, and you were not.
No, but they were like, it needs to be out before then, and you're only 3 centimeters or whatever I was at the time. It's not enough. Hurry up! If we jack you up on Synto, you'll have this baby in 6 hours. It'll be before the 24 hours, and everything will be fine. I was like, really? I don't know about that, but we'll see. So then it was about 12 hours after my waters broke, and they were like, okay, you're progressing. We see that, but it's not enough, basically, on our clock. So Synto's your next option. And I was like, okay, so you're telling me you just will not leave me? Like, you just won't leave me alone, basically? And that was pretty much it. The obstetrician was like, no, I won't. Like, I'm going to keep coming back in because I think that you're making the wrong decision. I'm like, okay, well.
Wow.
Like,
so
basically, she was pretty forward. It was she, actually. So I had a female obstetrician.
Wow. So she thinks that you're making the wrong decision for your body, that you're into, that you're trusting because you're declining something that she wants on her clock. Okay.
Totally. Which I was like, well, this doesn't make any sense at all. And I was like, okay, well, sweet. Hook me up and then leave me alone. That's what I said. I was like, if you hook me up to this thing, I don't want any of you in the room. Like, I'm saying none of you. none of you here. I want to do this by myself until I press the button to tell you to come check on me in 6 hours. I mean, obviously that's not going to happen because when they hook you up to Synto, actually they're supposed to have someone in the room 24/7.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because, well, it's a high risk.
Oh,
like hooking someone up to Synto is
just
actually like a risky business, right? So anyway, but the midwife she actually did periodically check on me.
Yeah. Okay.
So labor to me, like by this point, I definitely hadn't been in it a long time and like definitely was in like early labor. I think I got to maybe 6 centimeters,
Wow.
before they hooked me up to Synto. And so to me, I'm like, that is labor. You don't need to push this anyway.
Yeah.
We did. So we moved forward. And we got the drug pumped into my arm, and it's not comfortable, and you can't really move around as well.
No, that's right.
And obviously the contractions do become faster and harder, and you don't get a relaxation phase. Well, not a lot of one. And I was like, that's fine. I've done hard work in my life. I've done hard workouts. I can do hard stuff. I can do this. I can literally do this. That's fine. I'll do this for the next 2 days. I don't care. Don't touch me again. So I was very like, I could do this very easily. I was like, yeah, they're hard, but I've got hard things. So I reckon it was maybe 2 hours of this.
Okay.
And, she'd come in and jack the Synto up. She'd come in and jack it up. Yeah. So it was just like progressing. I was like, yeah, I got it. Throw something harder at me, I dare you. Like I was almost like, show me what you're made of because I'm going to come back at you. It's like one of those, I can do this. Wow. I'll show you. And then all of a sudden it was, hang on, this is not stopping. This contraction won't stop.
Oh, wow.
And I looked at her and I was like, it's not stopping. Like it's continuing. I'm like, she goes, no, that's just Syntocin. It's just hard. It just hurts a bit more. Like, and I know I changed my voice, but that's literally how it felt. Like very condescending and awful. And I was like, no, love, I get that. I know that. I'm well aware. I've been here for a little while now.
Yes.
This is not stopping. And she was like, oh, let me just have a look. Looks at the monitor. Yeah, you're right. This is not stopping. I was like, yeah, I told you that. Okay, cool. And then all of a sudden the whole world goes crazy because she's got to hit the, big red button. 4 billion people run in, probably about 12 or 13 doctors and nurses and crash carts and all the things. Because obviously if your uterus is constantly working, your baby can't breathe. Yeah. Right?
That's right.
So it's squeezing it, your child, and it's not stopping. So the longer my uterus is contracting, my child can't breathe. This doesn't happen to everyone, obviously. This is like a response to the drug that my body had. Yeah. And it's called hypertonia. So it's where your uterus just continues to contract and does not stop. So then they had to hit me with a bunch of drugs to stop the contractions from happening. And so in doing that, you basically cannot have a baby.
Wow.
Again, like by yourself, because now they've pumped you full of drugs to stop labour.
Yeah, that's right.
And I can't go back on Synto because, well, look what happened. So they said, do you want to go back on Synto? And I said, are you guys actually crazy? Did anyone just see what happened, or is it just me in this room? Am I the only one that just saw what happened? I thought that was actually the craziest thing anyone had ever offered me. I was like, that's like, what? Did anyone? Literally, I was like, someone pinch me, please.
They asked you if you wanted to go back on Synto. At what point are they thinking? I was like,
well, what's my option?
Well, yeah, that's right. But at what point are they thinking, oh, she's going to say yes?
Oh, I have no idea. Probably because they got me to say yes every other time. I was like, no. Like, I don't think you understand. Like, that's insanity. Like, that is actually the epitome. I was like, okay, well, pretty much my only option here is a cesarean because I can't have my baby anymore. Wow. So that was my only option. And I was like, in a great way, I was like, I am happy to agree to this cesarean so that you will leave me alone and I can go home with my baby and be in my space and love my child and leave you alone. And that's what we did. Yep. So we went in for an elective cesarean like 45 minutes later. And, it was a really lovely experience. They were nice. They let us take photos and videos. My partner felt, I guess, a lot more involved in this situation. Yeah. I can't say the anaesthetic, like the spinal, was very enjoyable because I was shaking throughout the procedure because that was the way that I responded to it. So, like, I felt very, like, sort of dizzy and my body was kind of shaking and I had really awful, like, cold shivers and stuff. But that's, I was like, that's okay. I can manage that. Then baby was born, happy, healthy, on my chest, breastfeeding. wheeled out of surgery. It wasn't the obstetrician who had asked me to get on Synto that did the procedure. It was a different one. She was actually really beautiful. So, like, we even did seeding. I don't know, vaginal swab, and then swabbed my baby's face.
Oh, amazing. Yep.
So we did do that.
Amazing.
Which was something I was big on. I also asked for delayed cord clamping, and she said, look, I can only do 2 minutes. So, and that was just because of meconium and because of the fact that we had a potential Cat 1 Caesar previously to the hypertonia situation. So she was like, look, I can push it to 2 minutes, but that's really all I can do for you at this moment. It's just going to be too hard. And I was like, okay, 2 minutes I'm happy with that. As long as it's not like bang, cut, done, you know.
Yeah,
so,
again, bargaining.
Totally. Yeah. But I was like, you know, she actually listened to what I wanted, and I felt supported enough in that situation that she actually listened to me and said, hey, look, I'm happy to this, you know. I understand give and take. I get it. It's a business. It's a practice, you know. So then they take you to like a recovery ward before you can go to like the actual, you know, postpartum ward. So yeah, I was in that recovery ward, and I remember feeling pretty good at that time. Like I was, you know, feeling pretty happy about the situation in terms of obviously the outcome and the fact that I chose, well, you know, mostly chose to have a cesarean. Yeah. Like, I mean, I didn't have much option, but, you know, I was like, okay, no, I'm fine with this choice. Like, I'm happy to make this decision. You know, I feel like this is the best decision for me. And they did, like, she did a really fantastic job in terms of, like, I mean, I didn't know exactly at the time, but I remember her saying during the surgery, hey, guys, just take it really slow. This girl is athletic. She's healthy. Please make sure that you're stitching her up, like, well. We're not rushing to finish this surgery. Like, please make sure we're doing a good job here. And I remember her saying that, and I was like, I really appreciate that. Yeah. And I don't know whether it made that much of a difference or whether it did, but, like, I had a very good recovery period, and, like, my scar is almost not noticeable at all.
Wow. Amazing.
And, yeah, and like, in terms of, like, my mum came in to see me in the recovery. Oh, no, not recovery. Like, once I'd gone to ward. And I reckon this was maybe like 3 hours after surgery. Yep. And I was up and walking around. Like, amazing. I was like, pull this catheter out, get me going. I'm going to wee. I'm going for a shower. Like, I feel good. So, like, I could get myself up. Yep. I was, like, a bit wobbly on the legs, but, you know, I felt all right. And my mum goes, far out. You don't even look pregnant. Like, you don't even look like you've had a bloody baby. How ridiculous.
That's amazing.
And I was like, I don't know what. Yeah, I was really, like, I was quite shocked. You know, like, I didn't look a lot like very major surgery. Yeah. Happened to me 3 hours ago.
Wow.
And so that was, I guess, a nice response in a sense. Yeah. And the only other thing, like, so at the ward, you can't have anyone stay overnight. Okay. So you're alone. So, I mean, like, that's a bit of a different situation when you've just had a baby. Yeah. And you've got no one with you.
And you've had a C-section.
And you've just had major surgery. Yeah. That's right. And, you know, everything is new and all the things. I think, though, I was so absorbed in this small human that was on my chest. Like, I was like, this is phenomenal. Like, isn't this just astounding? And I think, you know, that absolute high of life literally is what it was. Everything else really didn't matter in that moment. And so I was like, I couldn't care if no one was here for the rest of my life. Like, I wish this moment would last forever. You know, like, it was so perfect. And I remember, like, that first night, like, I don't remember pushing the buzzer very much to be helped up out of bed to feed my babe. I really felt, like, happy and confident and capable, and I was like, I got this, you know. I don't know, I was born to be your mum. We got this. Somehow I got this. I don't remember being in, like, a lot of pain. Obviously, they come around every 4 hours or 4 to 6 hours to give you painkillers and take your blood pressure and stuff like that, but I didn't really have a lot of issues or remember feeling too much pain, which was great, and not a lot of loss of sensation and stuff like that, obviously, once the spinal had worn off. I did have some really lovely midwives that were on ward in that postpartum period, which was lovely. But I did discharge myself quite early. So I stayed. So we had Tio was born at like 20 past 11, like a.m. And so I stayed the first night. So I would have made it to ward probably in the early afternoon, you know, had dinner, spent that night, spent one more night, and then left at 8 a.m. the following day. Okay. I was like, I am out. See you guys. So, and usually that's quite an early discharge for a lot of people. Like, we hadn't finished all the hospital-y procedures or whatever it was. I was like, that's fine. Someone else can sort that out later. I'm going home.
I've got other things to do. Yeah. See
you. Yeah, I've got this whole beautiful world ahead of me and it's not with you guys. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
Not invited. The only one other thing that I remember from that entire experience was the original obstetrician came around to see me before I left, and she apologized and she said, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry for what happened. I'm sorry for how that ended up. And I said, like, you know, thanks for apologizing, because you very well know that that was you. You know, like, my baby wouldn't have been born via cesarean had you not have decided that it was in your best interest to speed up my labor. And she was like, I completely understand that. And I think, like, that to me was, you know, like, not that she admitted blame necessarily, but I think she acknowledged the fact that, you know, maybe sometimes they're not right, you know? Like, maybe the mum is actually the one that's right. And maybe they should really respect that, you know, and until something becomes like quite a large risk. I mean, well, even in that circumstance, we'll actually know the mum still legally gets to decide, you know, they get total body autonomy. But I think just hearing that was quite powerful in a sense of, like, maybe that changed the trajectory for another woman.
I hope so.
You know, maybe. And I think, you know, and that's kind of what started, I guess, like, my motherhood experience, and, like, I guess the trajectory that I'm now taking, you know, just from that conversation and that response from her and that, you know, that birth story that I have, you know, and I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world. And I think it's definitely opened up mine and my partner's eyes to a whole new world. And I think it was really necessary, and I'm thankful for it. You know, it definitely isn't the most wonderful birth experience, but in a way it kind of is. And I really do believe that the universe gives us gifts, you know, and in forms of challenges sometimes. But then, you know, you see the gift at some other point in that journey. So, yeah, I think, you know, there's definitely some positives in that story.
No, that's right. There definitely is. And as you said, you know, things happen for a reason. And, you know, that's how it was meant to be for you at that point. And, you know, the cards you had in your hands with the medical team that was, you know, on call on that night, there wasn't much you could do anyway. It wasn't in your power. You were forced into a lot of things, and you were pressured until you said yes, because they can't do anything to you until you say yes, even if they want to. And it's really interesting that the obstetrician came to actually apologize, because I wonder what happened so that she questioned herself and realized that she was wrong, and then she came to tell you that. I wonder if there was an intervention from someone else saying you need to actually apologize because what she did was wrong, really. Like, there's no questioning that.
Yeah, I don't know what the rhyme, reason, or whatever else was for it. I think, you know, it could have even just been like a personal moment of, you know, like reflection, where she's gone, hang on a second, maybe had I not have intervened, it wouldn't have ended up this way. There's such routine interventions for the most part that they don't see a lot of the issues that come up with it. And maybe I am the 1 in a million person that has a reaction to syntocin, but you got to think of the 1 in a million, you know, because you come to me with a 1 in a million risk. And then you gave me a 1 in a million risk from your potential avoidance of a 1 in a million risk.
That's right.
You know, and I'm like, you know, had we have avoided one, we wouldn't have ended up with the other. Why didn't we just let nature do its first one? But anyway.
Yeah, and that's it, you know. Anyway, that's how it was, and that is how it ended up. And it sounds like you had a really positive, you know, birthing experience in the end once you got your power back. Once you actually decided, yes, I will have a C-section, and you got, you know, some things that you wanted, and that's positive, you know. Bargaining is all you can do sometimes, and you got that. So beautiful, you know, and you felt good in your recovery. You discharged early. Theo was fine. You were fine. Amazing. That is all you can hope for, you know, your early postpartum period.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we'll wrap it up there, I think, because it is definitely past 5, and it is definitely past
it's
Theo's.
Definitely almost dinner time.
Yeah, Theo's allowing time for his mum.
That's right. So I've tapped out, guys.
That's all right. Well, thank you so much, Carla. I'll leave you to it. We'll be in touch via email. If you want to do a second episode, I'd love for you to come back and tell the aftermath, because I think there's some really powerful message in there as well. And obviously I'd love to hear everything else that happened, your breastfeeding journey, your pregnancy, how that's going, and all of that. So yes, if you're keen, we'll just be in touch via email, and hopefully you can come back at some point if Theo gives you the time.
Maybe next time I'll be able to do it when my partner's home. Maybe they can go to the park for an hour.
Oh, that'd be cool.
He won't mind Mum being unapproachable for so long.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Carla. I hope you have a great evening, and we'll be in touch.
You want to say goodbye too?
Bye, Theo. Bye.
Bye. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to get notified of when a new episode comes out, please subscribe to this show on your podcast listening platform. Also, I would really appreciate it if you could leave me a review on Apple Podcast or share this episode so that other moms can find it. If you would like to tell your own pregnancy, birth, or parenting story, please head to the show notes and you will find a form there to get in touch with me. Again, thank you so much for listening, and I will be with you again next week for a new episode.